I use that sometimes in our talk about some of the work we're doing in the Middle Tennessee area, and I say I believe in the future of Middle Tennessee and faith not of words but of deeds.
I can easily, in my family, if I want to look to success, if I want to look to community service, compassion, caring for others, I guarantee you there's a woman in my family, women in my family that I could point my finger to.
Here's where I think maybe everybody should recognize is to not bring the full capability of women into your organization, whether it be your business, your hospital, your government team, is to not take advantage of a huge asset.
Nothing can do more for the family or for the community than having these kids be well educated and prepared for the workforce.
They are known as leaders in their fields. They are known for their accomplishments and the support they have given to women. That's why tonight they are known as the good guys.
I was a great athlete until I was about 10. And then I topped out. I topped out at 10. And little Charles grew up on a farm in Gallatin. My mother still lives on that farm. My father was born and died on that farm. And he's been gone 12 or 13 years, but very few people in our entire society would ever be able to say that someone was born. He was born in 1910 on that farm and died in 1999 on that farm. So I had a great childhood. I learned very quickly that I didn't want to be a farmer, and so I decided very quickly if God would get me off the farm, I would never go back. So I do go back every morning, about every morning, to see my mother, who still lives there at age 92.
You know, life in Dresden was a fun place to grow up. My mother was a school teacher. Several of my friends, their mothers were school teachers, and we all kind of grew up close to each other. Sports was how we spent our summers. You know, it's a small town, so by the time you factor in football or baseball or whatever the case may be, you find a way to spend your time for the rest of the year. Governor McWhorter and my grandmother were cousins, and so in my house, if you wanted to eat supper, you were going to talk about politics. So even from an early age, I knew the importance of public service and how my family had been involved. My folks had always enjoyed political campaigns just because they were fun, but also because it meant serving your communities.
The youngest tends to always try to maybe be up to something a little bit all the time to make up for being abused by the older brother and sister. So our family was actually a very active, outdoor, sports-oriented family. So my memories of being little are being in a neighborhood, where we were out playing night games of capture the flag and, like I said, afternoon baseball games and all those sort of things. My dad had played football for UT, and so we grew up, like I said, in the middle of Big Orange country, but even broader than that, I think there was one of the things in our family was just a real recognition that team sports were good for you, not just physically, but in terms of helping you develop as a person. And you might not always have the very best coach. We'll get used to it. You might not always be on the very best team. Well, that's how life works. But that there were lessons in all of that.
I was very fortunate in the sense that from the time I was a little kid, like from about 5 years old, my grandfather used to take me around every Saturday with him visiting supermarkets and our customers. And, and same with my father. And they didn't, they said to me, from my earliest memories is, look, kid, you got this opportunity, this obligation, and you got to run this business better than your father had.
The foundation created in those early years by the positive influence of mothers and other strong women became a commitment as this year's honorees built their careers and set an example of what it means to be a good guy.
I can't count the number of times that I have been in committee, and I've always been privileged in the legislature to sit next to Senator Thelma Harper. And I can't tell you the number of times that she's whispered in my ear or I've heard her comment when she just had a different approach to solving that problem, and it was such a better approach and something I totally had not thought of. I would say we need more women in public service. The legislature needs more women helping us fashion these laws that are going to affect children and generations to come.
My mother was a very strong lady, very bright, very intelligent, outgoing. I mean, she was my inspiration on all fronts. And additionally, I had an aunt who was also very bright and very capable, and she was on the board of the company, and which was unusual for a woman in that day. And she was always very active in the community as well. I think women are much more intuitive. They tend to be much more constant and predictable in their practice.
In 1978, Jane Ann Woods and I started a law firm called Bone & Woods, which was one of the first law firms in Nashville for a woman named partner. And as we built up to that, and as we got to be such close friends, and we've been close friends since Vanderbilt, but I realized how special Jane Ann was and how special Sissy Daughtry was, and and again there are many others, so I don't want to just acknowledge just the two of them. But when you really look at what occurred during the 60s as they began to kind of fight their way into the law schools and become recognized, it was really special. And when we started this firm 10 years ago, the first two people in this law firm were me and Stacey Garrett.
As I move into politics, I mean, you look at some women who understood how to be strong but not abrasive. And I think that's a hard mix to get, particularly in a public life, and maybe even more so for a woman in leading anything, whether it be a business, again, a government, whatever it is. In leading, it's all about getting the very best people you can. At the end of the day, I have one thing I'm committed to: the team with the best players wins. I don't care what it is, whether it's football or government or business. Well, if you're going to get the best players, to say I'm going to ignore half of the population is just stupid. Okay, so it's a lot of people cast things in the sense of, well, we need to do this for diversity, and diversity is a good idea. But at the end of the day, it should be driven by, for this organization, what's the best thing? And when I tried to build our state government entity and said, I'm just going to do that with all males, well, it's laughable, okay? So in the end, I think the very best argument is it's the best thing for that organization.
While it's obvious that each of the good guys has unique qualities that have contributed to his success, we also discovered that each had a few, surprising revelations and unique attributes that have helped shape them into who they are today.
Most people wouldn't know that I like to cook, and oftentimes I'm a pretty good cook. And my wife and I cook together. She has a lot of recipes, I have a lot of recipes, but I have to say my favorite is my grandmother's homemade spaghetti and meatballs that she brought over, the recipe that she grew up with in Italy and that she passed on to our family. And I have to say it's the best I've ever had. Mamma mia. Well, that's a spicy meatball.
So I had unwisely agreed to be the treasurer of my Sigma Chi fraternity at college. And I quickly learned that if you can't control the expenditure side of a business, you better not ever get into it. Because what I found out is I'd work my rear off making sure we got it collected, all the dues and all the everything. And and I'd be controlling the expenses, and then I'd make the mistake of going out of town for a weekend, and I'd come back and I'd notice all of these kegs of beer that people had signed my name to, you know, and so it was like, okay, this is awful, you know, and so I had to do what every treasurer had done before me, is sneak out of town when I graduated and let the next guy do a special assessment to try to start off clean again, you know. So yeah, it was an early on good lesson in control, or lack thereof, you know.
I guess I can tell this story because the statute of limitations has run out, but my very first contact ever with state government was when I rear-ended a state trooper. So fortunately, I've told that story to one of our current state troopers. He said, I'd love to see who that is and see if they're still around. Well, it was 30 plus years ago, so I'm assuming he's gone. And so like I said, hopefully I can dodge that.
Well, this would surprise most of your audience and would not surprise a few others. I've been a runner, jogger for years and done 40 half marathons. Recently at church one Sunday morning, this guy came up to me and said, "Man, I saw you out walking this morning." I said, "I wasn't walking, I was running as fast as I could." So we've adopted that in my household and around the office in terms of saying it's more of the bone shuffle now than it is, you know, a run or a jog. So
you have developed the bone shuffle.
The bone shuffle, which is very slow. I was out on Church Street recently running, I thought as fast as I could, and my daughter got a call from one of her friends saying, "You need to go check on your dad. I don't know whether he's going to make it back from Centennial Park or not." So seldom do I compare myself to Rocky.
I was surprised. I was very excited. And I couldn't help but think, well, how do you get to be a good guy? What do you have to do to be a good guy? Because I think we all want to be a good guy, but I thought immediately, well, what have I done to be recognized with this great group? Because I've known the men in the past who have been honored, and of course I know the gentleman who I'm going to be sitting with at the event, and I thought, what in the world did I do to be able to sit up here? And I'm still not sure, really, but it's a tremendous honor.
Well, I mean, you know, the title itself, it's hard to not appeal to you. Being thought of in that respect is a great compliment. And like I say, I don't think you certainly don't need praise, because there's so much reward that comes from doing the kind of work we're engaged in, but you know, it's nice to be recognized, and I greatly appreciate it.
Of course, I've been to many of the awards over the years, and have had great appreciation for all the guys who've been named before. So I was really honored to be considered and to be named. And I think, you know, I would say, while I'm certainly proud to be the honoree, I hope it is a reflection of what we've done here as a law firm that maybe is a little different from the way other people do things. So that's been our goal, to be sure that we reflect a culture that's open, diverse, and meaningful to everyone who's involved.
I'm honored to be selected, and I've seen some of the past honorees, and like I said, I'm grateful just to be in that company. But I think more the point that I would make would be, I appreciate organizations like this for pushing that idea that there are people who are, you know, helping contribute to the community, to our state, and the things we're trying to do in a way, again, that I keep coming back and using the words, that's beyond themselves. We're full up. We have all we need of people who are all about themselves. And so I think having an organization that celebrates people for going beyond that, that's a good thing.